For more on this, we now bring in Professor Ntsikelelo Breakfast, who's the Director of the Center for Security, Peace and Conflict Resolution at the Nelson Mandela University. He joins us now via our video link. Professor, thank you so much for your time this evening here on SABC News. Now, the National Assembly will tomorrow debate urgently the issue around the members of the SANDF who have lost their lives in the DRC. Let's start off here. What is your take on this urgent sitting?
Well, one of the philosophical traditions of democracy is separation of powers. So I think this is a good move to hold the executive accountable because Parliament, I don't think they've done their work the way they should have in terms of providing oversight on the work of the armed forces. But some of the problems, I mean, it's well and good to have a debate, but some of the problems of the DOD or the SANDF, they rest with wrong political decisions. For instance, one of the challenges of SANDF is budget cuts. That decision has always been made by members of parliament, not by senior officers. So I think also members of parliament, they need to take full responsibility for the wrongs that have happened in the armed forces. Again, I mean, I was taken aback by the low levels of understanding of members of parliament about some of the operations of the defense force, the way they were asking questions. So that is a matter of a concern, in my opinion. But maybe that also in the big things is also caused by the fact that if you look at curriculum design and development of political science in universities, it doesn't touch that much on the armed forces. So I think that gap, we as academics, we need to bridge so that people can understand the centrality of the military.
And Professor, I'm sure the issue around budget cuts will definitely, be at center stage tomorrow during that debate. But a number of issues is facing the SANDF members, right? It's also the issues around the issue of resources. It's also the issue around, little information which has been given to the public when it's regards to why the SANDF has been deployed to the DRC. I'm sure, a number of people will want to get clarity on that.
Yes, of course, because the armed forces have not been receiving media coverage enough. They only receive media coverage when something has gone wrong. And I'm of the view that most people seem not to understand. For instance, I mean, things that are simple, like some people use the term army interchangeably with the military, which is not the same thing, which tells you that people don't understand, the military. So I think as a country we need to do something in terms of inculcating, the interest in our citizens about the role of the military, because there is a strong nexus between security and development. For instance, who is looking after our economy when we are sleeping is the security forces. So it's good that Parliament will be engaging the executive institution about what has happened and what needs to be done as a way out.
Now, a number of political parties have also criticized the government for sending the SANDF soldiers to the DRC, Professor. And, do we anticipate with this conversation, with this debate taking place tomorrow, can we expect some sort of resolution in terms of seeing these SANDF members being returned to the country?
I think the bodies will be brought down. There's no doubt about that. I don't know where they are held up, but the chief of the SANDF promised that I think on Friday the bodies should have been brought back. I don't know what seems to be the problem in terms of the slow pace of movement in that regard. But coming back to your question, I think the debates will be informed by the items that have been submitted in advance. But I think in the bigger scheme of things, the discourse will revolve around the role of the defense force in the DRC and the future of the defense force. But my view is that South Africa cannot prosper economically if it is surrounded by countries that are collapsing. Hence, we need to stabilize the political situation of the DRC, including other parts of the continent, in order for development to be promoted in South Africa.
Do you think with this debate now taking place, it will also give clear guidance in terms of the future, in terms of how the SANDF members will be deployed, especially for missions like this one, missions of peacekeeping?
Well, I think we can build upon that, but it won't lead to a change of heart on the spot. But it's something that we can work on, because there has not been enough control measure that is put as an oversight over the defense force. But I think we can build upon what is going to happen going forward. And also, I think as a country, we need to prioritize, the role of the armed forces, both locally and internationally.
Coming back to the 14 SANDF members who we are expecting for them to at least touch down in South Africa by Wednesday, what do you make in terms of how the repatriation process has been handled by the government, particularly when you look at some of the reports in the Sunday newspapers where some families have even said that really there's been no clarity in terms of their loved ones and the information in that regard in terms of when they can expect their loved ones, the remains of their loved ones, to be home?
We are talking about a deep-rooted conflict or a protracted conflict. And because of this deep-rootedness, it has complicated the situation. M23 has been accused of refusing to let go of those bodies because they are in full control of some parts of the DRC. So I don't want to put the blame only on the government, while there are other dynamics in the DRC in terms of releasing those bodies. But I think coming back to the point that you made, I think Parliament should really make a call in terms of when should a deployment be done, in pursuit of what, in pursuit of national interest, or in pursuit of what?
And I mean, I remember even in 2023, when we saw the deployment of the SANDF soldiers, a number of political parties and political members asked these questions in terms of clarity, in terms of why they are being deployed. And, the likes of the DA even criticizing the government. Surely now that we find ourselves having this conversation and, with this urgent meeting taking place tomorrow, it should surely, seek guidelines in terms of how South Africa handles situations of this magnitude.
On the lighter note, on a serious note, why are members of Parliament asking how is deployment done, but they participate in decision-making? They form part of that. There is no head of state that can take, a unilateral decision without engaging with them. I think members of Parliament, they need to know their role, the role of oversight, because in a democracy, as I indicated, you've got separation of powers, and the executive institution is responsible for holding the legislative institution is responsible for holding the executive institution accountable. And the work of the legislative institution is broken down into committees. So they need to play their oversight role and not cry foul when damage is done. Because what is done now, unfortunately, cannot be undone.
All right, Professor, thank you so much for your time and for that insight. That is Professor Ntsikelelo Breakfast, the Director of the Center for Security, Peace and Conflict Resolution at the Nelson Mandela University, giving us his insights there when it comes to that debate that will take place tomorrow in the National Assembly.